Welcome back to Shorter Recaps. In today's video, we will be recapping an action and drama movie titled The Outsider, which is released in 2018. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and tell us what movies to recap in the comments. The movie opens with our protagonist, Nick Lowell, cleaning up in a Japanese prison bathroom. He sees a few guys coming out of the baths, and when he enters the room, he helps a man who is hanged from the ceiling. Instead of receiving praise, he gets scolded by the warden for trying to help the man who was trying to get a message out. He throws the two of them in a solitary cell, where the man introduces himself as Kiyoshi. He tells Nick about his plan to escape prison by attempting suicide, and asks for Nick's help in making sure he is kept alive until he is taken to the hospital. Kiyoshi promises that his brothers will come and help Nick once he's released from prison, so Nick agrees. After they get the sharp tool they need, Kiyoshi slices his stomach and Nick calls the guards, just like they agreed. Sometime later, Nick has been released from prison and a man comes to pick him up and drives him somewhere. They are in Osaka, in the year 1954, where the Yakuza is still prevalent. Nick is taken to Kiyoshi's Yakuza family, the Shiramatsu, who thanks him for saving their brother and offers him a job to do and an inn to stay in. They want him to deal with a stubborn American in town who won't make a deal with them. The next day, Kiyoshi takes Nick to the factory where the American works. Nick confronts him and asks about making a deal with the Shiramatsu family, but the man doesn't care and insults Nick for working with them using racist remarks. As a result, Nick beats him up very badly and leaves the building, telling Kiyoshi that the man will live but have learnt the lesson. That night, some of the Shiramatsu men are hanging out at a bar when their rival, the Shizu family, comes up to them. They tell Kiyoshi that the American factory is theirs now because of what Shiramatsu did to the supervisor, and threatens to take over the region. Kiyoshi says that they're only in truce now because his leader and Shizu's previous leader are friends, but Shizu should be careful with their actions. After getting hit by Nick, the Shizu men leave the bar. When Nick is in his inn room, there is a honking from downstairs which turns out to be Kiyoshi. He picks Nick up to go to a nice apartment in town, and says it would be Nick's if he decides to work for the Shiramatsu family. Nick accepts the offer, and goes with Kiyoshi to handle a problem with an underground gambling house. Apparently, the owner tried to blackmail a friend of Shiramatsu, so they come to warn him and remind him Shiramatsu is in charge of the town. Sometime later, Nick and Kiyoshi are in a club. A member of the Shiramatsu, Orochi, comes up to Kiyoshi and asks why Nick is still working for them. He doesn't like Nick, as he thinks Nick doesn't care about the family. When he leaves, Nick comes to Kiyoshi and asks about Orochi's deformed finger, which Kiyoshi explains that when a Yakuza dishonors his boss, they will cut their own finger as an apology. Then, Kiyoshi sees his sister, Miyu, drunkenly dancing in the club. He scolds her and tells Nick to take her home after she rebels against her brother. At home, she invites Nick to come inside, and they end up making love that night. Another day, Kiyoshi tells Nick that Orochi found out the American soldiers here are planning to sell some guns before they ship it back to the US Army, but Nick must do it alone as they can't risk the US Army knowing that Shiramatsu is involved. Once Nick comes to the docks, he is greeted by Shizu men, who ask him about the transaction and demand that he gives them the money they brought. Nick retaliates by killing a few of them, and this angered the Shiramatsu's head, Akihiro. Kiyoshi says that someone from their family must have leaked the information to the Shizu, and Akihiro wants them to find the mole. Because they need to apologize to the Shizu's head, Nick and Kiyoshi cut their fingers to take responsibility. The fingers are sent to Shizu's head, Hiromitsu, who asks if their mole and Shiramatsu can still be trusted. Later, Nick is in a car with Akihiro, who asks if Nick would tell him who the mole is if he finds out. Nick says yes, and they arrive at a forest where apparently, they are performing a ceremony to accept Nick as part of the Shiramatsu family officially. When the Shiramatsu men are celebrating, Kiyoshi softly confronts Nick to not get in a relationship with his sister, because he doesn't want her to marry a Yakuza. He tells Nick that Yakuzas can't love anyone, as their loved ones will be a target for enemies. Nick seems to understand Kiyoshi, but he still continues to date Miyu. We see a montage of Nick working more for Shiramatsu, while he finally gets a Yakuza tattoo that is similar to Miyu's. One day, the Shiramatsu family meets with a Shizu representative, who is giving them a business proposition to buy some stocks for a technology company with a subsidiary in the US. However, Akihiro feels disrespected because Hiromitsu did not show up to make the offer himself, so he rejects the offer despite Orochi's insistence on it being a good deal. Later at the bar, Orochi complains about Akihiro's decision, and drunkenly tells the story of him becoming a Yakuza to Nick. When told to go home by Kiyoshi, he goes out to meet Miyu, who turns out to be his past lover. Orochi then hits her for being with Nick, and wants to rape her before coming to his senses and apologizing before leaving. The next night, Akihiro meets with Hiromitsu during a sumo fight. Hiromitsu offers to protect the Shiramitsu family and its members as long as they don't form a new family in Osaka, but Akira refuses, saying that the Shiramitsu family are wolves and not dogs who can be caged. Akira leaves with his men, and while walking back, Nick meets with an American soldier, Polly, who turns out to be his teammate during the war. Polly thought that Nick was dead, and subtly mocks him for working and blending in with the Japanese, but then wants to come over and see Nick's house. When Nick refuses, the soldier plans to tell his teammates about meeting Nick, and as Nick doesn't want his past to ruin him, he decides to invite Polly over. At home, he offers Polly a beer and Polly says he'll keep Nick's life here a secret. However, Nick is not going to take any chances, so he kills Polly. The next day, Nick comes to Miyu's place, who is trying to hide the bruises she got from Orochi. He asks her who did it, but she won't answer and tells him to leave. On his way out, Miyu tells him that she's pregnant with his child, and that she doesn't want Nick to protect her. Feeling guilty, Nick goes to Kiyoshi's house to say that he has betrayed him because Miyu is pregnant. Nick offers to leave if Kiyoshi wants him to, but Kiyoshi tells him to take responsibility. Kiyoshi invites Nick inside and has a drink with him, before showing Nick the swords that he inherited from his father. He then gives it to Nick, as he now has Miyu and their child to protect. Then, Nick asks for help from Kiyoshi to bury the body of Polly. Meanwhile in Shizu's headquarters, Hiromitsu meets with the mole from Shiramatsu, which turns out to be Orochi. Orochi says that Shiramatsu is broken and poses no threat. He then proposes to do something to ruin the Shiramatsu family without Hiromitsu having to get his hands dirty. Another day, Akira and his men go to his tailor shop to try on some clothes. Kiyoshi and Nick wait outside as Akira goes into the changing room, but Nick has a bad feeling so he goes to check on Akira. His feeling was right as one of Shizu's men is choking Akira in the changing room, so they attack and shoot him. They return to the car and Nick tells Akira to stay low in case Shizu will shoot their car. Meanwhile, Kiyoshi wonders where Orochi is, but suddenly, more Shizu men come to shoot the car. Thankfully, Akira is alright, but Kiyoshi is shot in the neck and dies in front of Nick. Back in the Shiramatsu headquarters, they list off some of their men who had betrayed them, including Orochi. It turns out that a fifth of their men have betrayed them, and they are now outnumbered if they want to wage war. Nick, who wants to avenge Kiyoshi, wants to know when they can go to war with Shizu, but the others don't think Shiramatsu can win against them right now. Nick goes outside to calm down a grieving Miyu, and then the Shiramatsu men start to kill off Shizu men that have betrayed them. One night, a child comes to Akira to deliver a message from Shizu, saying to meet them tomorrow at the neutral territory at the port factory, with no guns. Akira treats the child gently, and tells him to relay the message that he will come tomorrow, to his men's worry. Tomorrow comes, and the remaining Shiramatsu men come with Akira to the port factory. They are met with Shizu and his men, who says that he doesn't want anything from Akira or the Shiramatsu family, but someone might. Then, Orochi comes out, and Akira meets him in the middle. Instead of cursing him, Akira says that he considers Orochi as his son. Akira still wants Orochi to come back to Shiramatsu and that it's not too late, before hugging him. Orochi hugs back for a while, but ends up stabbing Akira in the back, literally and figuratively. Seeing their leader dying, the Shiramatsu men goes into rampage and fights with the Shizu men, but they lose as they are outnumbered. After Hiromitsu leaves the premises, Orochi says to Nick and the others that as Shiramatsu family cease to exist, the Shizu head gives them an opportunity to live on to join their family. Specifically for Nick, only if he leaves Osaka and Miyu behind, threatening her safety if he doesn't leave. None of Shiramatsu's men accept his offer, and Orochi leaves after calling them stupid. One of Shiramatsu's men wants to fight Orochi, but gets shot in the head by Shizu's snipers. Nick, who tries to help him, also gets shot in the thigh. Following the fight, the police start raiding Shiramatsu's businesses, and Nick sneaks into Miyu's house to take her away with him. He then calls the Shiramatsu headquarters to let them know his plan of going into Shizu's headquarters and asking Hiromitsu for a chance to fight and kill Orochi. Nick asks him to give Orochi a weapon and prove how strong and brave he is. Orochi refuses to fight Nick, but Nick takes the opportunity to grab his sword and slash his throat. Surprisingly, Hiromitsu lets Nick live and tells him to go. The movie ends with Nick coming back to Miyu and his brothers, to be welcomed as the new head of Shiramitsu. That is all for today's recap. Thanks for watching, and see you on our next video.